The current area of Dandenong originally was the territory of the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung tribes of the Kulin Nation, and it had been for thousands of years. The availability and occurrence of water is what most influenced the living patterns of the Aboriginal peoples across Australia. As such, Dandenong Creek was a very important resource to the Aboriginal tribes as well as early settlers. It was a land of river red gums, creek floodplains and dry heathland. The cultural heritage sites that remain in the city of Dandenong that represent these earlier periods include important meeting and ceremonial sites for Indigenous tribes, of which many still hold a deep significance today. Some of these sites include valued groups of sacred trees, which reside on public and private lands. Many of these have scarring, representing the harvesting of bark, while some have hand and footholds to get to upper reaches of the trees. This shows in part the scars left behind by European settlers and the massive impact they had on the land and peoples. The living patterns of Aboriginal people had been severely disrupted due to the arrival of European colonists in Port Phillip. The impact that the colonists had on the Aboriginal people, their culture and population was severe, as between 1834 and 1850 their population had been massacred by 80%. This was further compounded by the loss of land and their traditional ways of life. Similar situations could be found all over the southeast of Australia during this time. As such, it was commonplace for disputes to happen between Aboriginal people and colonists. To try and mitigate this problem, an Aboriginal station and native police corps was formed in the 1800s for the purpose of dealing with disputes between native and European peoples. The location became known as the police paddocks, however the Aboriginals knew it as Neri Neri Warren. The Dandenong and Oomemering Creek flats had masses of red gums and rich soil that made it an early agricultural centre, and by 1837, around the same time when Melbourne was being settled, it was taken as a pastoral run for livestock, however mostly cattle. The industry here, milling and farming, became vitally important to Melbourne's construction and growth, which in turn caused the industry to grow and flourish. Once a township was established, it very quickly became a trading centre for farmers and graziers, which earned it the name the Market Town, having had livestock and a goods market which was founded in 1886. The massive amount of growth in the region and the pressure to provide urban services eventually ended with the creation of two neighbouring cities, Springvale and Noble Park, in 1955. These larger regions later became known as Greater Dandenong in 1994. Holden General Motors, International Harvester and Heinz all built massive industrial factories and retailers where the giant Red River gums once stood before the colonials arrived, and for decades added to the prosperity of the area and its people of all places, births and colours. After World War II, the post-war industrial boom brought an influx of European migrants, particularly from Italy and Greece. This increase in both population, industry and migration brought about a big rise in the prosperity of the area. As one of Australia's fastest growing metropolitan areas, Dandenong was of interest to major retailers, grocery chains, department stores, and this interest turned an already thriving area into a boom town, with rapidly climbing prices, with Lonsdale Street even becoming known as the Golden Mile. Dandenong was originally a separate city, but it was eventually absorbed into Melbourne's metropolitan area during the urban sprawl of the 1960s. Despite this, Dandenong maintains its own identity and character as a major commercial and industrial area. It has since developed as a highly diverse place to work, live and visit. It has a population of approximately 159,000, with residents from over 150 different birthplaces, which makes it the most ethnically and culturally diverse place in Victoria.
Welcome!
Vanakkam.
Australian brother of statistic, there are 3 countries migrate to Dandenong. Following the most population, which is Afghanistan, accounting for 16.5% of the population. Following by India, accounting for 14.8% of its migrant population. The third most population is Sri Lanka, accounting for 8.5% of population are migrated to Dandenong. Country who migrated to Dandenong in 1947 due to Indian independence of United Kingdom. A growing number of British citizens born in India moved to Australia alongside Anglo-Indians. Followed by India was Afghanistan in 1979. Due to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, they have destroyed hospitals, schools, mosques, and displaced 2 million of Afghanistan, forcing them to flee their home and country reach of refugees. A small percentage of their people managed to come to Australia today. The population of Afghan refugees number between 12 to 15,000. Finally, the third group has arrived in Dandenong was Sri Lanka in 1983. The special humanitarian program in Australia started by 1981 took in many migrants. Sri Lankans who have come here since then have arrived while the family reunion program. They have proven to be skilled in their professional and were allowed to get Australian certification in their chosen career to then continue living and working in Australia. The ethnicity of Dandenong, there are 3 countries continue to be at the top of the ranking. As the evidence shows, there are Afghan restaurant cuisine, followed by Sri Lankan cuisine. Lastly, there was Indian restaurant, which indicate that they still living in Dandenong.
Located on Foster Street is a strip of restaurants and retail stores, most commonly known as Little India. The significance behind this is because of its countless shops that delivers and celebrates Indian culture. With its decorative atmosphere, rich aromatic spices, and front window mannequins dressed in traditional saris, this street truly compresses the beautiful culture celebrated in India and delivers it to Dandenong, Australia. There are many aspects that define the atmosphere of Little India. However, the most significant depictions are the multicoloured shops with festive and traditional details that decorate each block. The shops on this block are mainly retail clothing, food, art, souvenirs, hair salons, cafes, fresh produce, and jewellery. Foster Street is home to Little India, consisting of multiple clothing and food stores attending to several parts of India. A few examples of stores that can be found on this street are Desi Style by Essence of India, Heritage India, Bikana Sweets and Curry Cafe, and Kolkata Sweets. Dandenong Markets is a multicultural shop that sells mostly everything and anything, mainly focusing on stalls within Mary Street. Unlike Little India, the culture is harder to depict from simply gathering visuals from an image. It is likely to gather a sense of community, tradition, lifestyle, and culture from the individuals whom and which own the separate stores. A part of experiencing foreign customs is talking and communicating with those who are a part of the culture. This map of the market illustrates the locations of the stalls and groups them accordingly to their purpose and what they individually sell. Within the highlighted box is the area of market in which we have focused on. Regarding the various cultures within the fruit and vegetable stalls located on Mary Street of the market. Cultural identities within the highlighted box includes Afghan, Chinese, Lebanese, Sudanese, Indian, Sri Lankan, and Australian. These are the leading cultures that sell fresh produce within the market. These two pie charts convey the ethnicities that make up each of the chosen locations. This assists our research in recognizing the dominant nationalities in which make up a multicultural aura.